Been going on this journey around the Muslim world. This is Hyde Park, isn't it?
The Regent's
Park, near the Central Mosque. And we're with Sister Salma Yaqub, both critic and social commentator, as well as an advocate for the Muslims. In fact, apologize for your comments, Mr. Whitby, right?
You're asking him to apologize.
Yeah.
And you did an extraordinary job on Hard Talk, which is considered to be a really difficult talk show to do. You've just recently been elected to the City Council of Birmingham, so that's going to change things for you. And you're also a mother of three sons, and you're a psychotherapist. Now, you're born and bred in the UK, and you're really a new generation of Muslim, because I think your parents' generation and the previous generation was largely an immigrant generation that came to England. They were really trying to assimilate and be as low-key as possible, not make waves. So you're really representing now an urban professional group of Muslims that are committed to their religion. So you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, as far as my public role, I have to say it was very accidental. As you mentioned, I'm a mum and a psychotherapist. But really 9/11 changed my life, seeing what happened at the Twin Towers, seeing how suddenly Islam as a whole was being branded a terrorist religion, feeling the pain of the people who were the victims of that attack, and also seeing the injustice of a superpower then threatening the poorest country in the world, Afghanistan. I mean, we have to go back now because obviously everybody knows about Iraq, but that's how it started. And it really made me question, well, what's my place in this? And I myself was spat on whilst I was with one of my young sons.
For wearing a hijab,
city centre, because I'm visibly Muslim. And, you know, I've never had to face any kind of racism or anything like that. You know, Birmingham is a great city to live in, it's multicultural and all the rest of it. But really what made me upset wasn't the fact this one person had done this, it was the fact that everybody else walked on by. And when I questioned my heart about that, I thought, Salma, you've seen a lot of things that you don't agree with. You've got mad watching the news, but what have you done about it? And I decided that being passive is really just as bad as being complicit. And for the first time, this verse that I've kind of read so many times, stand up for justice, even if it goes against yourselves or your families, your kith, be they rich or poor. It just sounds so easy, just stand up for justice. But when I started to speak out about the war in Afghanistan, being British, it was our troops that were going to go into that country. People then started saying, well, you're unpatriotic, and being visibly Muslim, perhaps you're supporting Osama bin Laden and you're on the side of the terrorists. It's that you're either with us or against us. And my father was also saying, look, just stay quiet. You know, people are angry, and if we speak up, it's not appropriate for us to do so. One of the worst parts of it was feeling so isolated. And actually some of our friends had come and gathered in our homes, and we'd thought about, well, where would we go? Which country would we go to? You know, who knows us? Who believes us? And, you know, are our kids safe? And Bosnia only happened in the 1990s, and it's a European country, and they were white Muslims. And we are the children of immigrants, we're brown, and, you know,
Noam Chomsky talks about the atomization of our culture. He says we often fail to realize how many people actually think like we do, but because we don't meet together and talk to each other about it. So people watch the news atomized, whereas the world is actually a world of molecules. It's atoms that bond together.
I've been brought up, you know, with this whole Islam is justice and jihad, and yet when it came to our own homes, our own country, silence from people who I expected to take up the leadership role. And I saw how fear really played such a big part in silencing us, and then they tried to justify it theologically. And it really didn't sit right with my heart, and it was very difficult for someone like myself to come out and speak, because now, you know, I'm not knowledgeable, I'm not a scholar.
Now, do you think being a South Asian woman in a culture that really sees women that speak out as, you know, it's just a taboo almost. What type of, you know, what did you come up against?
Well, it was all the time. I mean, it's seen as immodest. I mean, there's lots of things that you get called as a woman when you stand up and speak. And one of the worst things is when they undermine you as a modest woman, as in, have you got no shame? They confuse hijab with silence. And people will go to my husband and say, where's your sense of honour as her husband? How can you let your wife speak?
Don't you have a ghayra?
That's it. Right. These are the exact words. Yeah. Well, he just said, I'm proud of what she's doing. I am here, and she's got something to say, and I'm supporting her. In saying that, I mean, my husband, mashallah, is absolutely fantastic. But the fact is, he had to hear that. And obviously, it's not nice for any husband to have to hear these things about his wife. But I think because the issue was so serious, and because so few other people were coming out, in a way, my line was almost, well, if the men spoke out, I wouldn't need to come out.
It's just there's something funny about it, that men are, I don't know if it's fear, if there's a real fear, or if it's maybe a shame factor that they themselves aren't doing it. Like, she's making us look bad because maybe the men aren't doing what they should be doing.
It'd be nice if it was shame, because it showed it was coming from a conscience point of view. But to be honest, I think a lot of it was arrogance and being judgmental and saying this is not your place. And if they had said, well, we'll do it, that would have been okay. And even now, when I just ran in the election campaign, they were outside the mosques saying that you should not be voting for a woman. And
we've got the ones that are saying you shouldn't be voting, full stop, right.
And then you've got the ones that say you can't vote for a woman, even though we're talking about a city councillor, not Khalif, right? And then you've got the kind of people saying, well, yes, it would be so shameful if a woman beat a male candidate. So they'll come...
worried about your candidates?
Because they set up...
Are there other Muslims? Were you running against other...
Two other Muslim men.
And they were males?
Yes.
And you beat them?
Yes, by a big majority.
Oh, really? Well, that shows you, I think, then that there is support, or did they get the women going?
Do you know a lot of Muslims?
Mainly through work, different environments and school.
I've been to places like Afghanistan. We grew up in India, where I think women are extremely emancipated, very liberated. And I think there's a huge amount of misinformation about A, the role of Islam, B, the role of women within Islam. And I just think these are misperceptions that need to be addressed at some point. So I would say they're extremely strong, extremely liberated, independent women.
Most people that I've known they were sort of not more modern, less traditionalist, sort of through work and at school. Most people I've known wouldn't have worn the veil.
The whole concept of the veil needs to be understood, and it's seen as something that is quite oppressive in some societies. It's seen as something which is very much part of your culture. So if you wear it and you wear it with pride, I don't see an issue with it at all.
As a teacher, do you notice the segregation when you notice the Muslim girls wearing the hijab?
Well, I was actually quite surprised to see that for many of them it didn't change, that the school that I teach in, they seem quite well integrated. And I was really happy to see that they had members of friends from every group represented.
But I think you have a lot of young Muslim women who are out there, who are independent, who are working, who are not, who have a voice. And I think, again, I mean, it's really to celebrate those kind of...
Out of the 22 most powerful positions on the council, we have a cabinet. There's not one single ethnic minority person.
Isn't that amazing?
Right?
Now, is that a failure of the ethnic minorities?
No.
All right.
Because I can tell you for a fact that ethnic minorities, they're very active in elections. It's not the case they're outside of the process. Ironically, some of the practicing Muslims, because they're like, oh, this is a kuffar ideology and we don't want to vote.
But that's a minority.
But that's a minority. The vast majority really get stuck in, right? And we have 14 Labour councillors, 7 Liberal Democrat councillors. So we have, over 20, and there's myself now.
So where's the breakdown? Why is
So there is still an institutional barrier. We have educated people, we have the skills, and this is why I put it as a question in the first council meeting.
There's white people that don't want to hand it over to...
And women. Only 3 out of the top 22 jobs are held by women. So again, the Western democracies like to go on about
I know,
inclusion.
It's amazing. We were talking about, they're demanding, for instance, in Afghanistan, the Anglo-American alliance there is, demanding that a third of the...
30%.
30% of the parliament be women. And I'm like, well, wait a second, where is that in a Western democracy?
I raised this, and you know what I was told by the leader of the council? Go to Burnley or Oldham. He couldn't even answer the question, and now it's raised this whole controversy in Birmingham. Just about to raise it, and it's a perfectly legitimate question. but they just don't like being asked it by, and it's really because I'm a woman and because I'm from the ethnic minority. So whilst there's a lot of lip service to multiculturalism and diversity and democracy and women's rights, sadly still in the 21st century we're having to fight for these basic things.
But I liked the fact that, you know, you were, as you were saying, you were surprised to see that you have such great support from the press.
Yeah, and ironically, because the press are always in there as well. So in the hall, when I put this point, the guy who was attacking me for even raising it was clapped by the councillors. And even the opposition stayed quiet. But the next day, it became headline news that this is what happened in the council.
Is that Whittleby?
So Whitby's the leader of the council. So he thought...
So is that why you demanded an apology?
Yeah.
Did he apologize?
He hasn't yet, but this is ongoing. This is just today.
Don't demand an apology. I always prefer demanding that they beg your pardon. Yeah, because apologies still, they empower the person that did the wrong. You can go and try to get your recourse of this and that, but if I change that person's mind, if I change what's in their mind, the society's going to change as it is. Now, if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, when he came into Mecca, he said, "Man dakhala bayta Abi Sufyan kana amina." Whoever goes into the house of Abu Sufyan, who was his enemy and fought him for almost 20 years, he honored him when he was in that power. Do you know, the communists could never do that. The communists had to pull them all out of their houses.
But that's still the external, trying to affect somebody's internal.
He's changing the mind. He changed the heart of Abu Sufyan.
Yeah, through an external action.
What is the primary change that you would like to see for Muslim women in Britain?
Well, a sense of empowerment, a sense of pride in ourselves as Muslim women, and overcoming those stereotypes, you know, that we're all oppressed, suppressed, depressed, and, you know, we're all under the thumb of our fathers or husbands. Sad to say, there's a seed of truth in all of these stereotypes.
Course. Everywhere, though.
And I think that's a challenge of being a Muslim woman right now. On the one hand, we are having to challenge some of the attitudes which do hold us back. We have to be honest about that. And even when working and challenging that, we're still trying to take our menfolk with us. We're not trying to do it in opposition to them or in some sense of, oh, we're all superior, because that's unhelpful. And
well, that's an important point.
That's not an Islamic attitude. You know, it's not about proving which gender is.
Well, then it becomes fitna.
Yes, but again, the challenge is to do it with a balance where you're firm enough to challenge attitudes where they're wrong, but you're doing it in a constructive way, which is about really strengthening the family in the long term.
That there is that focus that we are not against, for example, our male counterparts, or that we are not, and we have to be careful with that, because if we do get into we're not fighting to, we don't want to be we don't want to be like that in that sense of
don't
equality.
Set your sights so low. That's what I say. Thank you very much for being with us, and we hope for tawfiq in what you do. We're very proud of you, Salma, and the community is very fortunate to have somebody like you as an advocate for them, and we wish you a lot of tawfiq in everything you do. So thank you for giving us the time.
Thank you.